him, and he will try to portray himself as somebody who knows Torah, and he doesn't. I'm going to slug up a lot of his stuff.
Well, he says he's the sheriff of Torah Town.
He's a coward, is what he is, and he apparently, according to the lady, he is a Jew, right? But he's not
raised Orthodox.
He was raised somewhat from, and he abandoned it all. Now he thinks he knows everything, and he's going to try to stay 1 week ahead of me by going in the chat room tonight and posting all kinds of terrible things about me, trying to say that I'm ignorant and I don't know things, and then the next week I come and I show that he's wrong, and then he's not in the room at the time. So, you know, he's got the advantage. What's so funny?
What?
Can I go through this thing now?
Go for it.
Are we good?
We're good.
All right. Make sure you're in the picture.
Yes, Rabbi.
Okay. I want to clear up the misinformation that was written in the chat room, and I'm not going to necessarily names because there was a lot of things that was pretty widely spread that were things that various people said that are not true. Okay. Is there anybody else that entered it that I need to know about?
No.
They don't know who Pimp Daddy is. All right. Someone wrote that Lilith. Is that how you pronounce her name? It's
Lilith. Yeah.
Lilith. Someone wrote that Lilith and not Eve was involved in the expulsion of Adam and Eve from Eden. They wrote that, and I just want to say that's false. We already did a show explaining that is all nonsense, and it's got no source in Judaism. Torah says that Lilith is not a woman, nor female, and had nothing to do with Adam and Eve. Nothing. It's the name of an attribute of the Yetzer Hora, which is the evil inclination. And somehow, you explained it last time, you called it a
mythological
like folklore. It's not even Jewish, attached to this name. They got a hold of a name and they just ran with it. It's got nothing to do with it.
So you believe Adam and Eve really existed?
Absolutely. It's a fundamental belief in Judaism. If you dismiss that,
you might as well date Shiksas and eat ham.
Yeah, I mean you're not even, if you cannot call yourself from and not believe that. You can't. It's a it's like one of the Rambam's 13 principles of faith. You have to believe that everything that's in our Masorah is true. Okay. Someone wrote that Aish.com explains that the Torah is compatible with the old universe, meaning something over 6,000 years. And I wanted to say that, again, I've mentioned many times in prior shows, that is one of the main reasons that Aish.com is problematic and needs to be ignored. In fact, we did a video on it. There is no room in Torah for an old universe, and such concepts reek of heresy and ignorance.
Have you ever met a Jew who talks as much about heresy as you?
Any follower of Rav Victor Miller will.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay. Can I keep going?
Yes.
Someone wrote that Christian fundamentalists don't have their priorities right because they think homosexuality is worse than eating lobster, but the Torah says both are equal sins. That's a false statement. In past shows, see, all these people need to do is watch continually every week. They won't write such foolish things. In past shows, I've explained that Torah considers the male homosexual act as an outright abomination deserving of the most severe form of the death penalty for both Jews and Goyim. Correct?
Yes.
That's far worse for a Jew than eating lobster, which is merely prohibited according to Torah, but it doesn't carry the death penalty. And for non-Jews, eating lobster is totally permitted. So homosexual act is, according whether you're Jewish or non-Jewish, very few things come close to it. Yes, it's worse. So the Christian fundamentalists are correct. Someone wrote that female masturbation is permitted. That's false. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein poskin that it must be treated equal to male masturbation, which we discussed in a recent show is prohibited. And Ashkenazis follow that ruling. And for Sfardim, the Ben Ish Chai poskin the same way.
I'm wondering if we should keep doing our Torah talk because of the number of women out there who, whenever they watch it, they just can't help themselves but start masturbating.
Well, then they need to hear this so that they'll know that that's...
Stop that right now. Stop that. No, stop that. Keep your hands where we can see them.
But if he wrote, he said that every show it's always the same thing. Me picking on you and you trying to turn the conversation back to sex. All right. Someone wrote that the Torah does not ban lesbian sex. And that's false. And we discussed in a recent episode that Torah forbids lesbian sex. So if these people would just watch every week and stop wasting time in the chat room telling us how much they know, but paying attention instead, they wouldn't run into these problems. Rambam says it's midoraisa. Rambam says it's one of the 613 mitzvahs. And we learn it from Vayikra 18:3, not to go in the ways of the Goyim. Okay?
Who are notorious lesbians.
True. While other poskim hold it's only midorabanan, it's from the rabbis, nevertheless it points to that pasuk, to that verse. Either way, according to everyone, lesbian sex is banned according to Torah.
So if you're having lesbian sex right now while you're watching this, stop it. Quit that.
Next thing, can I keep going?
Yes.
I got a lot. Someone wrote that biblical literalists like Rabbs don't buy that. That was their quote. And that was in regards to their misguidedly believing that the first week of creation could somehow be merely a metaphor and which would allow for H.com perversions. Okay? Want my response to that?
Yes.
Gross. That's absolutely gross. I am not a biblical literalist. I am not a biblical anything. I follow Judaism, and Judaism is not a biblical religion. It's a Talmudic religion. Instead of a literalist, what I am is a Masorah follower. And our Masorah has always been very clear that the universe, which is right now 57, 71 years old, and that's it. It has nothing to do with the Bible. It's what our Masorah follows. Judaism is based on the Torah tradition. Can I keep going?
Yeah.
Now I'm going to start naming some names. Dr. M. Abuse, who is now called the Sheriff of Torahtown.
I'm not confirming or denying.
Last week said, because now the reason why I'm using their names is because now they're legitimate questions that I want to answer. Mm-hmm. These aren't the stupidities that they wrote. These are like almost legitimate. Dr. M. Abuse wrote, if the Torah wastes no words, then why does one verse tell Noah to bring 2 of every animal, yet another says bring 2 of some but 7 of others? Mm-hmm. By the way, that's classic Bible criticism, because when you're a Bible critic and you don't have Hebrew and you don't know what's going on, you don't have the oral Torah, you end up saying stupid things. Bible critics are notoriously say stupid things. Okay, so I wrote, great question. God tells Noah to bring 2 of each of every animal, and those are to perpetuate those species. But then he added 7 more of each of the kosher animals because they're going to be used as offerings immediately upon departing from the boat once the water is gone. So there's no wasted words. You got 2, let's say like you got the cows, right? The behemoths. Mm-hmm. You got 2 cows because you're going to need to perpetuate the species of cows from that point forward. But you need 7 more that you're going to immediately slaughter and eat from when you get off the boat. Right? If you slaughter the 2 that you have, that's goodbye cows. So that's a very simple answer. Dr. M. Abuse asked another question. How did Adam and Eve produce such a diversity of offspring so quickly that just in a few thousand years we have Negroes, Swedes, Chinese, Melanesians, etc.? Okay? That's a silly question. I have a better question for you. How did God produce such a diversity of plant and animal life so quickly that in just 1 week of creation, every type of living form known to us exists? That's the bigger question you want to ask. And the answer to all of those things is that's child's play to God. He could turn all of us into Schwarzers in one night if he really wanted to. And by the way, it wasn't Adam and Eve where the diversity began. It was actually with Noah when he came off the boat. Torah says that from his son Ham came the black people. Now the fall of the Tower of Babel, which came shortly after Noah, a few generations later, caused lots of languages to form and caused people to spread out, and they stayed with people who were of the same language so that they could understand each other, right? You know about that?
Yeah.
Okay. once they moved and they were scattered in different places, God probably changed all of their appearances as well to make